Okay, Anyone But You is a romantic comedy, which I am very surprised they actually still make these days. I really feel like ever since the age of streaming, I feel like there's some genres that have just kind of slipped off the planet. One of them is the comedy movie, and of course that leads to the romantic comedy. Specifically kinds that, I talked about the film Kinda Pregnant a while ago, did a little 10-minute rant on that and how I didn't like that one. Anyone But You, I actually kind of did like. I'm not really a sucker for romantic comedies. There's actually very few that I do like. But this film, I had to admit, had its charm. I was actually surprised at some of the areas that it went to. And the plot is surprisingly believable and surprisingly unbelievable. And I'll get to what I mean by that. Anyway, it stars, Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell, who are really on their way to becoming A-list stars, if they aren't already. And they do pretty good performances here. Anyway, so it starts out with Sydney Sweeney at a Starbucks or something like that, or a coffee house, trying to use the bathroom, but they won't let her. And Glenn Powell kind of steps in and pretends to kind of be her husband. And and he's already in line for the bathroom because apparently they won't let Sydney Sweeney into the bathroom because it's for paying customers only. But essentially, yeah. So there's a bit of a back and forth, and there's kind of some dumb thing. I think Sydney Sweeney, they do that thing that you see in a lot of comedy movies where a character tries to wash their hands, but the thing sprays them on their pants, and then they have to dry themselves off using the, the blower thing. I've seen this bit in so many other films, and it's really, and I felt like, don't do this bit. It's, but hey, the film pretty much made up for it. I mean, because there's a lot of things in this film that have been done in other films. And hey, that's film in a nutshell, really. But anyway, so the two characters actually kind of meet up after Sydney Sweeney's trip to the bathroom, and they go back to Glenn Powell's character's place, and they hit it off pretty well. Now, here's the thing. They sleep together, but they don't have sex. They just kind of they have a really good conversation. And but here's the thing. When in the morning, Sydney Sweeney just kind of sneaks out. And here's the thing. As she's leaving, she's having a conversation with somebody about how she really met a guy and she really liked this guy. And she realizes, why did I sneak out? That sends the wrong message. So, unfortunately, by the time she tries to go back and to explain what happened, this guy's already having a conversation with his roommate, friend, someone like that, and basically says something to the effect of yeah, she's just real waste. And she hears that, and she's pretty hurt by it. Now, this is one of those films that cuts to years later or something like that, so some time has passed, and these two characters meet each other again. And as it turns out, Sydney Sweeney has a sister, and Glenn Powell's character has a sister, and those sisters are going to get married. And they're going to get married in Sydney, Australia, so it's like a destination wedding. We've seen destination wedding plots been done before, and like I said, they've been done to death, and usually it's a good place to have a nice romantic or some sort of something happen there. It usually is. Destination wedding is a great setup for any film. So these characters absolutely hate each other, and they make no secret about it when they talk to each other. They pretty much, they go from passive-aggressive to pretty much the next level of that to almost active aggression, and then it kind of becomes this really interesting thing where Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney realize, listen, we need to start learning to get along with each other because our sisters are getting married and we don't want them to remember our anger with each other as being the thing that was involved in their marriage. And I have to admit, though, that's a very solid point that the film makes. And what's funny is the surrounding characters, think that they can get Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney back together again romantically. And they think they're trying to play essentially matchmakers. And we've seen that whole matchmaker plot where somebody's trying to pull the strings all the time, and we've seen this done pretty well, and I've seen it done pretty badly. And here's the thing, I actually just discovered that this film is kind of a bit of a play on of the Shakespeare play, Much Ado About Nothing. And it took me a while to realize, oh yeah, that is kind of that. But I hadn't seen Much Ado About Nothing in a long time, and yeah. So this is a more comic version of that, and definitely a more modern take. So what happens? Well, as you might have suggested, or might have figured this out, Sydney Sweeney and, boy, this film is actually more confusing than I thought, and Glen Powell actually figure out what's happening, that they're trying to be matched up. So they basically realize, like, okay, why don't we pretend to go along here? And then the film just kind of becomes them trying to really pretend to be boyfriend and girlfriend, and for the most part, failing at it. But it happens one night when they're all in a boat that Sydney Sweeney falls off because they're trying to replicate the scene from Titanic, because they're trying to show, like, oh, look at how romantic we are. Anyway, so she falls in the water, and Glen Powell dives in and goes after her, which is a pretty cool move to do. And when they're talking, they've managed to swim to a buoy where they're picked up, but while they're on the buoy, they have a conversation. They start to realize what they did wrong, and this is kind of where films like this usually go, and a good place for it to go, and I actually really enjoyed that. And then they spend the night with each other very romantically, and this is an R-rated film, so they can show a lot of things. But here's the thing. In the morning, it's actually Glen Powell's character who sneaks out. And I think it's because Sydney Sweeney's character is having second thoughts. Now, if you look at this film, Sydney Sweeney's character is very much at that stage in your life where you're not really sure what you want to do, and you have a lot of doubt, self-doubt as well. And in this film, what's strange is both Sydney Sweeney and Glen Powell have exes that are at this wedding, and all these exes seem to want to get back together, and I'm kind of going like, why? I just like the one that Sydney Sweeney's ex is brought back by her parents. Like, her parents actually fly him out to Sydney for this. I'm kind of going like, wow, that's a little heavy. I didn't really expect that, and it's kind of like, yeah, at no point in time I don't think they are the parents of these movies. Or actually, it's kind of funny. I think the matchmakers in this film, which include both of the brides in this thing, or both of the wedding party, I don't really think they get a comeuppance on this. I kind of feel like, yeah, you probably shouldn't be pulling the strings on that. There's times in which I feel like that, where people that are trying to pull the strings to get people together, I don't really think that's a very smart thing to do. I don't really think you should do that. I really think that, in fact, at the time, I think you should just back off almost entirely. I know that's impossible to do at some point in time because you were literally in the situation. But yeah, and here's the thing. The film doesn't want me to judge them too harshly, so I'm not going to judge them too harshly. Hey, what can I say? I got a soft spot. Anyway, so do I even need to tell you how this film ends? No, I probably don't. It would have actually been, I've seen romantic comedies that have a setup where the two characters decide that, no, this is not how it's going to play out. And I actually thought that maybe this film would play that card. And I actually would have supported this film if it played that card. As it is, it does have one of those scenes where a character goes like, where the character has to say, I wasn't kissing her, she was kissing me. I feel like those type of lines are really all played out. And I kind of went like, okay, we got to have some sort of third act breakup here somewhere. And but there was already a third act breakup after they had gotten together the first time. I don't really see why they needed this to twist the screws a little more. But I do like at the end, and this is one of those, since it's a romantic comedy, most romantic comedies usually end with the guy or one of the characters, usually the guy actually, running after the other one and to profess their love in some sort of grand romantic gesture or something like that. That usually happens. And in this case, I really feel like they really played it out, and couldn't help but feel like I was getting like Mission Impossible 2 vibes. Probably because it was in Sydney and there was a lot of helicopters and they were all jumping off into the water and the beaches and stuff like that. Just couldn't help but get those vibes. I mean, I don't know, that's just me. Anyway, so yeah, Anyone But You is actually a really good film. If you like romantic comedies, you'll love this one, okay? And I might watch this one again because, hey, these days, I hardly have any time to watch content again. But hey, might actually do it on this time. Anyway, this is Mark Rollins in the Geek Church, signing off.